John Burns here in the studio, and Ciaran Moran in your own studio there in County Roscommon. Thank you very much for joining me. So we've seen a heck of a lot of furore over Leo Varadkar's comments about urban Ireland basically paying for rural Ireland, but we're trying to delve a bit deeper into that, both I suppose statistically and ideologically. So John, just remind people, what did Leo Varadkar say that prompted such a backlash?
So Leo was reacting to things that were said during the recent fuel protests. This idea that the people on the barricades were the real people of Ireland. These were the people who were working hard, who were paying all the taxes, who were keeping the economy going, and they were in rural Ireland. And Leo said, that's completely wrong. It's actually people in urban Ireland who are paying all the bills, while the people in rural Ireland are getting all the subsidies and paying much less tax. And because he used a big broad brush and used things like all, but also used very loose definitions of urban and rural, he really got people's spikes up. Anybody living outside Dublin didn't react well to what he said. And in the slightly febrile political environment we're in at the moment, with a couple of by-elections happening, I would imagine he even got some pressure within Fine Gael to withdraw the comments or walk them back at least, so that he wouldn't do his party any further damage.
And he has, as you say, walked them back a bit and in effect apologised for upsetting people.
He has a bit. He basically said that he didn't phrase it very well, and I don't think anybody could argue with that. He certainly didn't. His essential point is actually true. Most income is earned in urban Ireland, and most tax is paid in urban Ireland. And rural Ireland, because it has an older population that relies more on social welfare payments, does get extra subsidies. That essential point is true, but he said it in a fairly inflammatory fashion, which you wouldn't expect from a former Taoiseach. But Leo is now, I suppose, a member of the commentariat, so maybe he likes to say things in a slightly more controversial and blunt manner.
Ciaran Moran, there you are now. You have all those tax subsidies and you're getting all our money from Dublin down there into Roscommon. What was your reaction to Leo Varadkar's comments?
Well, I would say, firstly, Fionnán, I was shocked, to be honest with you, because I covered Leo and his many appearances in the agricultural events at his time as Taoiseach, and back then he had nothing but only great things to say about agriculture in rural Ireland. It was such an essential part of the economy, all the thousands of jobs it created. So I was shocked that, kind of he's changed his tune. I think, maybe Leo has took the unusual course of, governing in poetry and podcasting in prose. And another element to this that I think is important to mention is that I just think the whole thing is a bit childish, I think the debate over the relative merits of urbanization was kind of settled a long time ago. And I just think that Leo kind of met the more extreme elements of the protest at their level with this kind of, how to say it, the broad stroke comments about rural and urban. I just think it was unhelpful. And look, I'll be honest as well. I think we're coming off the back of a really emotive week. And I just don't think it's been divisive, and I just don't think it's helped. It's certainly not helped Fine Gael anyway.
Ciaran, are you urban or rural? Because you are a farmer based in Roscommon. You're also the deputy editor of the Farming Independent. So you work half your week in Dublin, half your week in Roscommon. The food that you produced is either sold in rural and urban areas or on a global market, wherever it may go. The money you take home from your Farming Independent job, we're based in Dublin, but we have readers, customers all over the country who pay for that. So how do you even define who is urban and who is rural in this regard?
Well, I think that just speaks to the complexities of what is a modern economy. And I would say that, people generally see themselves as citizens of Ireland, rather than see themselves as, oh, I'm rural or I'm urban. I think it's kind of an outdated concept at this point in some ways. Now, obviously, there are differences. Like, let's not forget the challenges of living in an urban area with the costs and all that, and that's the challenges of living in a rural area. They're obviously unique as well. But I mean, I think in the modern economy, modern world that we live in now, I just don't think of looking at these things in this kind of binary way is helpful anymore.
Yeah. John, surely be to God, from a statistical point of view, and let's move where he says all. The majority of the taxation is bound to come from urban areas because it's just pure demographics. You have more people in urban areas. You have more jobs in urban areas. You have more business and industry in urban areas. So yeah, I mean, you're like I live in urban Ireland. Around me, there are jobs and companies. There's retail. There are office jobs. There's some manufacturing and so on. That's grand in the square mile around me. In the square mile around Ciaran, there's green fields that he's farming. So obviously, more money is going to come from urban Ireland than rural Ireland.
Totally, that is the case. Now, it wouldn't always have been the case. If you go back to the 1980s when agriculture formed a much bigger part of the economy, that wouldn't have been the case. But since then, the economic model has changed. We now do heavily rely on multinationals for our employment and for our taxation. Not just the corporation tax that these huge companies like Apple pay, but the extremely well-paid jobs that they also provide, which are centred in the big cities. But just to go back a little bit on this as to why Leo might have been frustrated and lashed out, I think there's a few things to mention. First of all, there's the Mercosur trade agreement, which Ireland didn't ultimately ratify at the behest of a very small section of the farming community. This trade deal with South America would have benefited our dairy industry, our wider food industry, and the country as a whole. The European Commission bent over backwards to facilitate Ireland putting in opt-outs and review clauses and so on. And I spoke to two people this week, and they said the amount of frustration with us in the EU that we didn't actually ratify this deal. Now, Leo would have been involved in the talks when he was Taoiseach, and I would imagine there may be some residual frustration there that this deal was brought down. Then we had the farmers protesting in the Board B office, trying to bully the chairman out of his job, which most people would regard as being very unfair. And then finally we had the fuel protests. Now, as it happened, the fuel price increases in Ireland were no worse and in fact much less than they were in other European countries such as Germany. And the people on the barricades are already very highly subsidised sectors of the economy, such as the agricultural contractors. And then we were getting lectures from some of these independent Ireland TDs that these were the real people, as if the rest of us are not real people, the people who go to work in multinationals and in newspapers and in offices in Dublin, Cork, Galway, that somehow we are not real people, not making any contribution to the economy. So I think all that maybe burst in Leo's brain and he decided to lash out as a result of that. Because, you know, the point that he made in relation to the urban-rural split of taxes is certainly correct.
Ciaran, can I ask you, do you think at times, though, that there is a risk that rural Ireland can kind of overplay its card? When you hear that basically, well, people in rural Ireland, they're the real people, therefore urban Ireland is not the real people, that politically that could end up backfiring, because ultimately, yes, Leo Varadkar is accused of being divisive here, but also people who go around saying, well, we're the real people and you're not, they're also being divisive.
I think that's a really interesting point, but I think we should come back to Mercosur, because I think this is a key part to the origin of what's happened in the last few months. And John is absolutely right that, on paper, Mercosur would have benefited Ireland in general. But I don't think that beef farmers in particular, should apologise for defending their own interests. I mean, I think what's fascinating here is where was John's people? Where was IBEC? Where was all the citizens coming out saying, Mercosur is going to be great for me? There was no alternative voice out there, and I don't think that's the IFA's fault or that's farmers' fault. It's not up to farmers to go out and help the pharmaceutical industry or to help the whiskey industry get their point of view across. And that speaks to your broader point. I think ultimately Leo's comments were really about, why does farmers have such a big say, or why do rural people have such a big say and such a big voice in our society? And I think it comes down to, and I'll apologise in advance for saying this, but I think it comes down to that famous quote from fictitious U.S. President Jed Bartlett on the West Wing. Decisions are made by those that show up, and farmers generally show up all the time. They're extremely politically active, as you would know, Fionnán. Like if you think of the manpower that goes onto the streets for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael during elections, farmers as canvassers, they make up a huge part of that. They get involved in society, they have organised lobbies, they make their voices heard, and I don't think they should apologise for that, if that's what you're asking me. I think that's how society works, and they're like the IFA, Irish Farmers Association, is the second biggest lobby group in this country. And if John is rightly telling us that agriculture makes up only a small part of the Irish economy now, isn't that incredible that the IFA is the second biggest lobby group in the country? And I think that speaks to the activity and the willingness of farmers to get involved in society and make their voices heard. I don't think they should apologise for that.
But John, your people in big business, as Ciaran has said here, that's the point though. Mercosur got rejected because a lobby shouted loud, got their base activated, which prompted a response in the political system. Where was the business lobby? Where was the tech sector, the pharma sector coming forward and going, hang on, guys, we can't not endorse a trade deal. We're one of the most globalised economies in the world.
Yeah, no, Ciaran is absolutely right about that. That whole lobby group went completely missing. And I put it to Danny McCoy of IBEC afterwards, and he tried to claim, oh no, we were definitely saying we were in favour of it. The only statement that was released by IBEC during that time was from one of their sectoral groups, which was representing the meat industry. Nobody else said a word. But where was the enterprise minister during that whole debate? Where was the trade minister? They were all silent. And that was a huge failure by that particular sector of society. However, I will take on Ciaran's point in relation to how farmers and the agricultural lobby have been making their case. I don't think it's right to go into the Board B offices and to camp out there for weeks and try and bully somebody out of their job. So it's fine to show up, but I think in recent times some of the showing up has really crossed the line a little bit, and some of the protests in places like Brussels have gone beyond really where they should go. But it is an organised lobby, but I do think at times, and more recently, it's become a little bit too strident, and maybe that's why the pushback happened. And personally, I'm really disappointed that Leo walked back these comments. I mean, because he's out of public office now, he has a freedom to say things and to speak his mind in a way that he didn't have before. He was in the room, he knows how the economy works, and he should be free to speak his mind. But we constantly get this thing about when somebody says something really interesting or controversial or colourful, there's immediately a whole pushback saying you have to apologise for that, you have to withdraw it. And they do, and the whole debate is just utterly shut down. It happened in relation to the migration question a few years ago as well, where you couldn't express any opinion other than the general consensus. And I think the way we're leaving this now with Leo saying, I'm sorry if I offended anybody, that's a bit of a pity.
How distorting an effect is corporation tax having on this idea of urban Ireland producing so much of the wealth in the country?
It is now having a distortionary effect. So Kevin Timoney, who is the chief economist of Davy, did a very useful analysis for the Irish Independent during the week. He used revenue figures to work out which counties in Ireland pay the most tax and which pay the least. And Longford pays the least, and Ciaran's native Roscommon pays the second least, I'm very happy to report. As you'd expect, Dublin pays the most, and Cork is second. However, the figures for 2024 do provide a bit of a distortion because of the Apple back tax payment. And Apple is based in Cork, so that payment of corporation tax was attributed to Cork. And in most years, Cork would be second, but wouldn't make as big a contribution as it did in that particular year.
Isn't the taxation system, though, isn't that what it's for? Governments make policies decisions around taxation in order to stimulate parts of the economy. So while there may be obviously there are taxation benefits that go to farmers that don't go to office workers, but that's because government thinks it is important that we produce food to consume, that there is an active economy there.
Absolutely, and the government uses tax breaks to stimulate all kinds of activity that might not otherwise happen. And food could not be produced in Ireland if there wasn't a subsidy. And I think it's absolutely right that the agricultural sector does get a subsidy. And there are other parts of the economy that are heavily supported, such as the aviation industry. You know, the aviation lessors can write off the cost of an aircraft every 8 years against tax. The film industry gets a huge set of tax breaks, and they're getting wider all the time. And there have been specific tax breaks, for example, to stimulate the IFSE. Charlie Haughey did that back in the early 90s.
Temple Bar.
It didn't last very long, but we can thank that particular tax break for all the super pubs we have in that area. And of course, there are also things like tax breaks to help people buy homes. Now, does that favour rural Ireland more than urban Ireland? Probably favours urban Ireland more because houses are more expensive there. But it is a complex debate, as Ciaran said earlier. If you've got somebody working for the Apple factory in central Cork, who lives in Carrigaline and is maybe commuting to work for 30 to 45 minutes every day and lives there, are they part of the urban economy or are they part of the rural economy? And that Apple factory in the centre of Cork is one of the biggest payers of tax in the country. It's paying billions in corporation tax. But cheek by jowl with that factory in Hollyhill is Knocknaheeny, which is one of the most socially deprived parts of Ireland. And there are massive pockets of social deprivation in our cities, such as in Limerick. So that just shows that there is a lot of nuance to the debate, and you shouldn't use a broad brush when you're making these points.
Ciaran, one of the points Leo Varadkar raised was about the tax benefits that go, as he said, to rural Ireland. But in effect, he was talking about farmers in that regard, and he was talking about EU subsidies and so on. What's the value of that in monetary terms and in social terms?
Yeah, so during the budget or before the budget each year, the Department of Finance releases all the tax expenditures and under each heading. If you combine all the agricultural ones, you get to a figure of around 570 million per year, which is about 7% of all the tax expenditures, which totaled 8 billion last year. So it's not insignificant, but you couldn't say it's an unfair share. I'm not even sure how you would calculate whether it's an unfair share. Who is to say what's unfair? I mean, that's a political choice ultimately. I mean, the main tax benefit or tax relief that farmers get is through inheritance tax. And as most people know, obviously, farmers are asset rich and cash poor. They own property, but often the underlying businesses are quite precarious, really, in terms of their finances. And, we decided as a nation 100 years ago now that, we would rather, small family farms in our country. And you're not going to have that if you don't have inheritance tax relief, because the reality is that the majority of farmers today could not afford to buy the farms they work. So, I mean, that's kind of the social benefit. I mean, it's funny then, the other key tax relief, and it's funny how things come around the circle, the other key tax relief to farmers is obviously green diesel, where all this started. And, maybe 200 to 250 million a year in excise relief is given to farmers there. And as I spoke to you before, Fionnán, if you want to have affordable food, you need to keep costs down at the farm level. It's just basic economics. And I mean, that was one of the interesting points that, I think it was asked of Leo, in terms of the importation of food and how we import 80% of the food we eat, despite, farmers on the protest saying, no farms, no food, no future. That was the big banner. And obviously, it was a bit of a silly point, to be honest, because we live in a globalized world. If yourself and John there, Fionnán, if you want me to grow bananas here in Roscommon, I'm more than happy to grow bananas for you, but you're going to have to guarantee you're going to give me 50 euros a banana, because it's going to cost a lot more. I think we have all, decided that, it's better that we produce the food where it's most efficiently produced in order to keep prices down in the supermarket. I mean, what frustrates me about this whole thing is that we're not really having a serious debate about our food system, because we need to have an important debate about our food system. There's a lot of problems there in terms of the future and generational renewal in agriculture, all those issues. And this is this is just really kind of a childish conversation about urban versus rural. I don't think it's helping anyone, to be honest.
Ciaran, can I ask you, what do you regard as rural Ireland now? Because where you're living, there's obviously people in this day and age. The roads are a bit better now. Let's not get into a discussion about the roads in Roscommon. They're getting better. They're not quite there yet. But in a lot of rural areas now, roads are getting better. The motorway network is in place. People are commuting longer distances, and maybe they're living in rural Ireland, but they're actually really urban based in terms of where they're actually making their living. So how do you define rural Ireland now?
Yeah, and I wouldn't underestimate it, and I think the government needs credit for the National Broadband Plan. I mean, I'm here talking to you today on Zoom from rural Roscommon. That's only possible because I have high-speed broadband, fibre, direct into the home. I have colleagues in Dublin 8 there that have worse broadband than me. It's an absolutely incredible situation, and it's fantastic, and it's leading to a lot of people's ability to work from home, bringing people back into rural areas. And, I mean, in terms of how I see what rural Ireland is, I mean, it's a difficult question. I mean, I feel rural. I look out the door here, I don't see another house, for, a kilometre. But, I also work in Dublin. I don't feel like particularly that much different to you, Fionnán, in terms of as a citizen of Ireland. I really think as the years go by, these kind of terms become less important. You know what I mean? I don't have a good answer for you. I don't feel any different to my colleagues, John and yourself in the office, just because I live in Roscommon here.
Just to correct you, Ciaran, John doesn't want you to grow bananas. He wants avocados for his toast every morning.
Yeah.
If Ciaran can't see anybody, that's one hell of a big farm he has there.
More like
or just very rural.
Or just very rural. So, John, ultimately, does Leo Varadkar have a poorly expressed point here that is uncomfortable, that we don't want to kind of accept?
That's it, yeah. I interviewed a few economists this week, and every one of them said the point he's making is right, but we wouldn't have phrased it in those terms, and he phrased it badly. And actually, I think it's been a useful debate that we've had over the last week, because some of the issues that got aired don't normally get aired. And I don't think there's going to be the growth of any huge urban lobby group or people rallying to Leo's standard on this. Yet I think it is worthwhile to look at where the tax is paid in Ireland and to where the subsidies are going, as a way to ask, well, are we happy with the sort of economy that we have created? Because there has been a huge change in the last 20 or 30 years, and that's been kind of forced on us rather than one that we chose for ourselves. But it is kind of precarious. We are very dependent on a small number of multinationals. There's these constant calls to say we need to start building up in indigenous industries as a bulwark against the multinationals at some point getting up and leaving. But we simply aren't doing that. And meanwhile, there's constant talk about, trying to balance the population of Ireland better. And there were hopes that with hybrid working, there would be a better distribution of the population. That's not happening in Ireland. Ireland is still swiping from left to right when it comes to population. There's a huge concentration around the Dublin area, which is putting massive pressure on the infrastructure, and yet people in rural Ireland have similar infrastructural problems of their own. So if anything comes from this, it should be that we do look at these issues a little bit more seriously and study them better.
Ciaran, to you as well, do you see that Leo had any point here?
Well, I would just put it to both of you. What was his point?
His point seemed to be that there's more money coming from urban Ireland than rural Ireland, yet rural Ireland has a disproportionate amount of influence over policy making. That I think was what he was trying to get at.
What about you, John? Would you agree that was his point?
Ciaran, I wonder, would it shock you if you were told that 80.4% of all the taxes paid in this country are paid by the 5 city counties? Dublin, Cork, Limerick, Galway, Waterford. That's a very high proportion of all taxes, though. So the essential point he made about, urban Ireland is paying all the bills. That's not wrong.
Well, not all the bills, though. I mean, rural Ireland is I suppose this was the problem. You just went too far. Urban Ireland is paying the majority.
The vast majority.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, say, a county like Roscommon, it's the second lowest tax take in the country. I think something like 220 million, which is fine. But Roscommon on its own could not pay for all the teachers it needs to teach the kids of Roscommon. It couldn't pay for all the Gardaí, for all the nurses. It couldn't build all its own roads or its own infrastructure. It needs to get money from other counties, probably from Galway, which is a huge contributor of taxes. So on a simple level, Roscommon is heavily subsidised and not paying all its own bills. I have no issue with that at all, and it is unfair to set one part of the country up against another, but it's still a fact.
Ciaran, are you going to declare an independent republic of Roscommon? No,
it doesn't look like we have enough tax income to do it. But I would just say it's just not a hot take. I don't think we've learned that in this week, have we?
Okay.
Like the fact that urban Ireland pays more tax than rural Ireland. I don't think that's a hot take. I think if we're going to have a proper debate about, rural Ireland, urban Ireland, regional development, let's have a proper debate. But I think what's gone on this week has been a bit farcical.
Okay, and we'll leave it at that. Ciaran Moran in County Roscommon, John Burns here in Dublin City Centre. Thank you very much for joining us. And you can get the full Indo Daily episode on the urban versus rural Ireland debate on Monday morning, available on all podcast platforms.